Hey guys, it's Hannah from Half Acre Heart, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about the top 3 mistakes that I made with my very first vegetable garden and what I did to fix them. It is my 3rd year gardening, and every year I feel like I learn so much, and I strive to continue to learn. I feel like no matter whether you're a beginner or you've been doing this for decades, you're always going to learn something new every season that you garden. So here we go. Alright, so top 3 mistakes that I made with my very first vegetable garden. Number 1 was the physical placement of the garden bed in my yard. 2 was overcrowding, and 3 was not growing vertically. So the very first thing that I did wrong when I started my garden is, I don't know if you can see right back here behind my shoulder, that is where I put my garden bed, my first garden bed. And the sun rises right over this roof right here, and it sets right in front of me. So we're in North Florida. That side of the yard got the most sun. Basically no shade, maybe a couple hours in the very first thing in the morning, but the Florida heat is really brutal combined with the humidity, and while my plants did grow and I did get a little bit of a harvest, it just wasn't optimal. So we have since moved the garden to the back. You can see that it gets some shade in the back, and so does our in-ground area back here. So it's a much better place for the garden. And that's how I fixed it. I moved it. And I know not everyone's going to have that option. You might have to bring in some shade cloth or something like that if you're in a similar situation where you're in a zone that just gets a whole lot of light, or if you have a backyard that maybe doesn't have a fence or doesn't have trees, so you don't have, just some structure to give some shade without having to bring in something new. I'm going to show you 2 pictures. The first one is going to be, I think it was like 9-10 o'clock in the morning of my garden, and the second one is, I think it's by like 1 p.m. and you'll just see how sad my garden looks by that time. So the second year when we had it in the back, it was much better. Definitely still had a little bit of drooping here and there, but it did get a break at some point in the day with the shade. So okay, so problem number 2, or mistake number 2 rather, was overcrowding my garden bed. So I'm sure a lot of you out there are super excited and you just want to grow all the things. That's exactly how I was. So I put 2 tomato plants, 2 green bell pepper plants, a cantaloupe plant, and 2 spaghetti squash plants in my 8x4 garden. So the squash and the melon were definitely a mistake because one, they spilled over, which would have been fine, but they just didn't have enough space so they didn't strangle each other, because they reach out their little tendrils and they'll wrap it around whatever they can, and they were just strangling each other. So I did get a few spaghetti squash and a few cantaloupe, but they weren't like high quality ones. I mean, who wants to spend all this time and effort and care in their garden and not really get like a huge harvest? I mean, I was still very happy with what I got, but it just could have been better if I hadn't. He's so old, he shouldn't be doing this. What would he even do? What would he even do? Buddy! Anyhow. So if I would have either had a bigger space for them, like right now, I could put it in ground over here. That's where I would put any melon or squash plants, just because they spread out so much, rather than a raised bed. I feel like no matter what, they're going to spill out of that and just crawl everywhere. Okay, so mistake number 3 with my first garden was not growing vertically, because had I grown vertically, mistake number 2 could have been avoided, because those, crawly melons and squash, I could have grown vertically. And I was on a huge, very tight budget, because we just had our one garden bed. It costs a lot to fill that with soil. So we didn't really have a whole lot left over for anything else. However, there are some super cheap ways that you can trellis, and we should have done that. We could have. And so this year we will be growing vertically, and we have our bed moved, and I will not be overcrowding my garden. And hopefully we just have a higher yield season this spring with everything that we're able to harvest. And I am just so excited for what else I learned this year, to bring you guys some more knowledge.